What's everybody? Welcome to the Grand Torino. Delighted to have back Kevin Sharkey with us again for part 2, back by popular demand, I should say. I've read some of your comments and your questions, and I know we have a couple of questions for Kevin. We'd like to just raise your awareness, and I'd like to thank my patrons as well that have made contributions to the platform, try to keep the platform going, and that it gives us a chance to ask them some different questions and try and ask what's going on in the country. Kevin, delighted to have you back for the second time.
Nice to see you again.
Back by popular demand. I have a list of questions and stuff like that. I'm sure you have a few different things. I don't know if you read any of the comments that were posted.
I did, and they were predominantly incredibly positive, and it's very nice to see so many people, you know, who previously were a bit scared about joining the dots, starting to put them together and starting to see that there's another narrative out there that's not been talked about and not been discussed. And in relation to your channel and the work you're doing, I would say to anybody watching, please do support this man, because what he's doing is incredibly important, not just for us today, but for generations to come. And it's people like this who will be seen in history as heroes, who stood up for something while everybody else just covered their head in their hands. So whatever you do, donate, anything you can do to keep this message coming out and to keep it strong and pure, please do. Much appreciated. Thank you for the work.
Thank you very much. Very kind words. Lots of different subjects. One of the very first things I think I'd like to ask you as well, because it's been, and I think I'd like to soften it in. We have a type of poet that's looking for a second term as our president. And I was debating whether to bring this up with you, but it's been quite popular, and I think I'll do it straight from the off, so we won't cause a distraction. We have our own poet and our own sort of artist who represents his interpretation of Ireland. And I think a second term, I think I'd like to ask you, would you consider running for president? Do you think that's something that might be running for you?
It's something I've been thinking about for several years, very seriously. And you know, the thing is, I think the reason I haven't been able to put it away and put it down and forget about it is that I've become very aware that there is a consensus that's going on between the politicians and the elected officials and their backers, which really, for me, means the end of Ireland if it isn't addressed. And I believe that an Irish president should be a president for Irish people. And that is an uncommon, that's almost like a slightly daring thing to say anymore, because Michael D, while he's a lovely man and has been a very effective president, I don't agree with everything he says, and I don't agree with his view of the European Union as being part of the inescapable future of Ireland. I believe that Ireland was built on the foundations of some great patriots, people who believed in more than their own advancement, and that they cared about their own people more than the people who paid them to care about other people. And when I look at the presidency in Ireland, what I see is an opportunity to give voice to a narrative which is missing and has been missing most of my life. We've drifted into this malaise of we take orders from Brussels. We used to take orders from England. And my fear has been that we've lost faith in our own ability to govern. We've lost faith in our own ability to think and to think for ourselves. So my interest in the presidency is as much about seeing it as a platform for getting across this message, the reason we're here talking today, because I believe it's the single most important issue facing Irish people and will be for generations. You know, I get flack from people sometimes when I say that I believe that Ireland in 200 years should be a predominantly Irish country. Now, does that mean white? Well, yeah, because it is a white country. Does that mean I don't agree with multiculturalism? No, but I've seen very little evidence of it working. What I believe is that we have a unique moment in history here where the Irish have got to start learning to say, as I think I mentioned this the other day, as Mrs. Doyle would say, there's a little word that God gave us, and it's a lovely little word, and it's no. We've lost the ability to say no. We've lost the ability to say no. In fact, saying no now sets you apart to be discriminated against, to be called a racist, to be called anything that doesn't suit the agenda. And for me, whether it's the presidency or whether it's the job of the leader of Ireland, the Taoiseach, you have to understand that this country belongs in its heart and soul to Irish people. And rightly so, it's their country. And it's their country that's been divided up now. It's their country that they're being told they can no longer have pride in. It's their country which they're being condemned for speaking up on behalf of their own citizens. And that's wrong. That's wrong. And you know, when I look at somebody like Michael D, and wonderful statesman, you know, can do the talk, can do the walk, but at the heart of his message, I think Irish people have been forgotten. You know, it's one thing to bring them all up for the day and give them nice sandwiches and a nice wee drink, but actually, in the long term, is the future of Ireland something that you care about? Because if it is, now's the time to act. Now's the time. I know I nearly got a bell here to ring to say, wake the fuck up, Ireland. Because you hear what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you this for fun. I'm telling you that you need to wake up and see all around you what's happening is you are being sold down the river right now by, unfortunately for us in this situation, you have an unelected Taoiseach who wasn't elected by the people. He's taking orders and instructions from an unelected man in Brussels. What happened to democracy? So who asked us? Who voted for this? Because I guarantee you there isn't a person in Ireland who voted last time round to have their culture taken from them, to have their resources given to other people when they so badly need them themselves. That's not what they voted for. We have a system in this country, political system, which the two main parties, they are the one. They no longer disagree. The idea that they call them one thing and another, that's like two donkeys in a field. They're both donkeys. You know, they might have different personalities, but they both hee-haw. They both wag their tails at the same time, and that's what we have now. We have a donkey government. And also what a lot of people, I think, don't realise in Ireland is, who are the politicians in Ireland? Who were they before they became politicians? I'll tell you who they were. They were auctioneers. They were school teachers. They were butchers. They were sons of people who'd been in there before. That's not how you get the best people to do any job. So we have basically these people making decisions on our future and making a decision with our money and our country, not based on wisdom, not based on experience, based on, here's your portfolio, away you go. And if you've seen some of these guys, it's obvious they don't know what they're doing. It's obvious they're being thrown in at the deep end, but that's politically a very big mistake, because if you're going to put somebody into a job and ask them to make decisions, you want to make sure they have a team of experts behind them who know exactly how to advise them, and not to advise them to advance their own narrative, but to advise them as to what's best for Irish people. We have the hospital situation, you know. You mentioned 2040. This new, the new Ireland.
We're going to bring in a million new immigrants from across the world, wherever they may be. But we're also going to borrow, we mentioned this briefly on the first interview, we're going to borrow an extra 115 billion. We're already in the hot for 260 billion. How is this going to succeed? Like, I'll draw your attention to Liston Varner was recently in the press. Regardless of the fact of everybody's feelings, and there's maybe some, you think, some agitators out there, mainstream media is trying to cover a certain narrative. But let's look at the essence of it. The town hall, the people of the area, the people that are directly affected, 300 residents. And I don't speak for them in any way, shape or form. I'm just reporting the facts. They had a town hall meeting, and an overwhelming percentage of them decided no, it wasn't in the best interest. The fact that they didn't agree to take in any refugees wasn't a problem, but the sheer numbers was seen to be a problem, and that it was seemed to have gone through without their vote having any sway or having any discussion on it.
But that's the same all across the country. That's the same with this rollout for this big, you know, basically what they're saying is, we're going to destroy your country and your culture, and you're going to get to pay for it. That's what, you know, it's the taxpayers in this country who that money's borrowed that have to pay back. The Germans in this situation, who are now at the center of Europe, it's their experiment, and I say experiment, it's their experiment, and what we have now is what happened in Liston Varna. For the people of Liston Varna, I think it's a tragedy. I think it's really unfortunate, because it doesn't matter the colour of the people. It doesn't matter where they come from. What does matter is, if you were going to dissolve a town and a culture and a population by adding to it anything in those numbers, there will be consequences. Of course there will. You add 250 red-headed people to a small town, there are going to be a lot of red-headed kids running around. So what Liston Varna, unfortunately, has been used, it's almost like a litmus test. It's the same thing, but it's not just there. It happened to Roscommon. Yeah, there's only going to be this amount, then there's going to be more. But of course it is, because, and this is what I really want people to try and understand, is that for years I've heard people talking about different religions and different races and different ethnicities. What people need to start understanding is that this is about us. It's not about them. Because the minute we get onto them, we're into diversive politics. You don't like them. You don't want them. No. It's not about them, it's about us. It's about Irish people being looked after, and Irish people being able to get a hospital bed, and Irish people being able to find somewhere to live. And it isn't even so much in preference to, it's actually the moral duty of this government to look after Irish people first. And when you're being told that no, actually, we have more of a responsibility to these people, I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where are you getting your orders from? And then you follow the chain of line back, and where you get it, they get it from the banks. So I would like people to stop using the word globalization and start using what those people really are as bankers who want one single banksters, crooks and suits, crooks and suits. Yeah, and what do they want? And here's the bit that a lot of people don't quite get. What they want is very simple, and they're getting it. They want more consumers. That's what this is all about. It's not about religion, it's not about politics, it's about more consumers, because those people want more money and more power. And they don't give a tuppenny fuck what we have to put up with to get so that they can have that. They care not about nationality. They care not about your history, your culture. No, no, no. That gets in the way of commerce. And what we have here is a beautiful, beautiful country. I mean, the parts of Ireland, it would make you weep to go and look at the beauty. It's stunning. And we grew up believing that was our heritage. That was our right to enjoy the view on the drive from Dublin to Donegal. But the people in Brussels don't see that. What they see, two words, real estate. They see loads of empty spaces, and they'll tell you, yeah, it's better for you that we have more people because you'll sell more of your products. You'll make more money. That's not what's happening. The money stays with the 1%. The workers become slaves trying to prop up a system which is effectively robbing them at the same time as they're propping it up.
Let's bring in what's kind of going to action that, what I feel is going to action that. Maybe a lot of people back home or people that are from the United States that are tuning into our broadcast as well might be afraid. We've got another, the family reunification bill that's being enacted as well. And we're already dealing with the abortion referendum. To say the 8th of March went ahead, both sides had a chance to turn out and represent their positions. And I think by the optics, the overwhelming majority spoke out. And I'm hoping that it carries the vote that way too. That's my personal opinion. But let's talk about the Family Reunification Act and what that entails. Are you aware of what the family?
Yes, I am. And what I would say just prior to that is to say that if there are people in America watching this, and I know there are, I know that some of them, it matters to them even more than it does to us that they're Irish. They love it with an intensity. They have this spiritual longing to belong to Ireland. And that, honestly, it gives me a lump in my throat sometimes because it's a pure love of the idea of a nation. We sometimes just look around and we're here. Sure, we're here. We're already here. They have this, the American Irish, and there's 30 million of them. Those are the guys that are going to save Ireland, you guys, because you're the ones with the power to support a movement like this, to say, no, this is a man who's speaking the truth. This is a man who cares about his country. This is a man who cares about something you do. Therefore, support is the only way forward. What do I do, and how can I do it, and when can I do it? This reunification bill, you see, in the initial stages, to most people, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. You'd be like, well, what? So you want to let someone come over, then you want to bring their whole family over. Okay. What are we talking in numbers? Because nobody's talking about numbers. Everyone's talking about the right thing to do, the politically correct thing to do. The numbers are what's going to change this game. They're going to change this game because Irish people sometimes, having a grasp of world events, wasn't something I grew up with. But bit by bit, I understood that numbers were universal. That when you explain to Irish people how many people in Ireland are on hospital beds that are Irish and how many are that are not, how many people are on the housing list getting houses that are Irish and how many are not, how much money are we spending on foreign aid every year, where's that going, how much, numbers, because Irish people respond to common sense and logic and they go, well, actually, that doesn't, now that you mention it, that take away the rhetoric and just start looking at the numbers. The reunification bill is a success from the people who want to impose it, but it's a disaster for anybody else. And if you stand up against it, you're shut down because you're racist, you're xenophobic, all of this bullshit, which works so well in the UK. That's why the UK is now the state it's in. That's why you go to places in the UK and you would think, where the hell am I?
They're the canary in the coal mine.
We are the canary in the coal mine. And unfortunately, we're being stoked, and we're being stoked by the politicians who are supposed to protect our interests, and they're telling us, shush, we know what's best for you, go along with it or you're a bold boy.
I made an analogy there to a friend of mine as well, was just in reference to our American analysts, just to reiterate towards you, sorry for the stutter, that when the military is, when the president is in charge of the United States through his republic, the military swear their oath of allegiance to the Constitution, to the basic foundations of the thing, not to the president per se, but to the executive. what were politicians? Who were they sheltering? Are they still upholding the basic constitution, the tenets of what the 1916 came up?
No.
They sacrificed them?
No.
Who are they listening?
The banks. That's where they take their orders from. That's Europe. You know, Europe is a huge experiment, but it's been backed by the likes of George Soros, people who have made their living making money. George Soros isn't interested in Ireland or America. George Soros is interested in making money by adding more consumers. People don't understand that if you bring 5,000 people to Ireland and you put them all on the dole, how could that be good for Ireland? It's not, but it's good for the economy because that money on the dole, where are they going to spend it? They're going to spend it in the local shop. If they get a job, where are they going to buy their petrol? In the local shop. They're selling it to us as in this is good for you because it means more money for us. That's what they're selling us. They're saying, we know how to make money. We know how to make more money. They are robbing this country blind right now, and they're selling it piecemeal to anybody who's interested in buying.
Terrible deals. Terrible deals.
The worst, because it's the greedy man wanting more money, more power, and more control. New consumers is what these people coming from anywhere, whether they're on a boat out in the off Italy. They are looking like most people who come from poor countries a better life. And if we offer it to them, how can we be angry with them for taking it up? What I want to see people doing, Irish people doing, is the next time somebody knocks on their door looking for a vote, I want them to ask that person, what's your opinion on the open borders in Ireland? Do you know how many people are now able to come here if they so choose? And do you have any idea what that would do to our country if they all decided to come at the one time? Do you know how much money we're paying? Can you tell me, do you know how much money we're paying out in foreign aid? And how can we afford to give that away when we can't even heat our old folk? Do you know how much money? And that's where the numbers come in again, because most Irish people didn't vote to watch their country being sold down the river. Most Irish people who care about Ireland are really angry and upset now because they realise they've been sold a crock of shit. They've been told, shush, 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 take the medicine and I know what's best.
Pay the debt, pay the debt.
Pay the debt. Oh, no, we're not just pay the debt. Let's get more. Because the more debt we get, the more they control. That's all it is. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I asked a German years ago, what is your country telling you that makes it okay for them to give away all this money? And he said, but from us, it's very good. They all pay the money and we get the money back, everything good. So his thing is they're money lenders. And we're like the poor family at the end of the line going, take what we have, just give us something that'll make us feel better about ourselves. And they use money. You know, all across the board, they're all singing from the same song sheet. And that is not something that's good for the future of Ireland.
Power of information is another topic that I was thinking of. Who's controlling the narrative? Do you think our mainstream are giving adequate cover to world events? I mean, are they shifting on one side of the narrative? Sorry, Kevin. One side of the narrative. Are they portraying anything over here in any sort of agitated state? Or are they just coming from? Would you say left wing bent? Are they controlling the narrative too much? I mean,
they're doing their job for their bosses who pay them,
exactly.
which is to promote his or their point of view. It's not to promote mine or yours because we're not paying them. Yeah. So the narrative is now such that there's only one argument left, and that is, this is the truth and everything else is false. Like when I hear people talk about fake news, I'm like, who are we talking about? BBC, CNN? Because if you're going to tell me that Alex Jones or some guy on the internet is fake news, you have to look at all of the news and say, well, actually, where do you see the real news? Because what I see is regurgitated shit. I see the politicians repeating, the news stations repeating what the politicians want them to repeat. And it's like Russell Brand said, if you're, the only people who think the system is working are the people who are working for the system. And that's what we have. We have a whole system which is racked up against our interests in the long run. So they're doing what they're told to do, and what they're told to do, whether it be Dennis O'Brien, whether it be Rupert Murdoch, those guys are not paying for that narrative for nothing. They're paying it to get their message out, and their message is, you are in the way of our plans. The people of Lister and Varna, you are in the way of our plans. The people of Roscommon, you are in the way of our plans. The people who say, reunification, this is a good idea, you're in the way of our plans. And they'll shut you down like they shut everybody down by calling you names. And as I say, sticks and stones.
The reshaping thing, let's go back and touch on that again. And the question that we asked, who asked us? I mean, as I say, Leo to me is unmandated, brought in by the selection of the committees to replace a man. And for me, he's no more damage to this country. The 6 months he's over there, representing Ireland in the St. Patrick's Parade, giving away a scholarship. I mean, who asked that? Where did we get the warranty to spend our money Don't deny anybody the ways of help, but look at our people on the streets.
He is
Of all
representing.
nations and creeds.
Yeah.
To make that representative gesture, who asked him to carry out the decisions?
Yeah, his bosses did, and he's representing them. He's representing big business, finance, and big banks. He's not representing Irish people. How are you representing Irish people when you're telling them to shut up and take it? When all they're saying is, I don't think this is fair. Oh, no, you're a racist. And that's what we have. Leo Varadkar is not working for the Irish people, and I think it's a long time since any of the politicians in Ireland really worked for the Irish people. You look at the special interest, whether it's the Healy Rays down the country arguing not to ban drink driving, and then you discover they've had pubs all their life. Whether it's the tobacco lobby telling you can't have them vapor things, people, they're blowing up, they're going to kill. Well, how many fags have people killed? We have been at the center of a tug-of-war between these special interests all my life, and what we now have is a faceless, spineless government, which is made up of career politicians who couldn't give a tuppenny about you, your children, or your future because they don't live in a street where the influx is causing a problem. They won't ever live in that street because those people aren't going to be afford to go and live in Dublin 4. And what they're doing is watching, or turning a blind eye, should I say, to ordinary, decent, hard-working people who are having to try and make sense of what's been done to them in their country. And then they're called paranoid because they want to talk about it. And that's how you shut people down.
Another thing that was brought to my attention as well is that some of the councils and TDs are looking for parity in the gender equation in government and stuff like that. And they're saying there's not enough gender equality in the aspect of the Dáil. And they're kind of forcing the equation. Rather than basing it on meritocracy or what your background, where you've come from, it's seen as a gender identity. We have to have this 50-50 equation in government. My argument would be you have to get there on merit and you have to show what you've done, same as everybody else.
If we were on a farm down the country, and we were running a farm, me and you, and we had women and men working there, we'd want the best performance from both those workers. Now, if the women are better at doing one thing, we would be inclined to push them towards that because it means for more production. If the men are good at doing one thing, and let's face it, men and women are not the same. They're not the same. They're physically different. But this narrative that's been perpetrated again and again, such as gender is more important than fairness, political correctness is more important than honesty. Men and women are different, and men and women can do the most amazing things together, but they do from a point of knowing their strengths and weaknesses. And women are smart enough to know their own strengths and weaknesses. And men, to some degree, know their own strengths and weaknesses. But when you get into saying this person needs to be given a job because he's got a Mickey, or this person needs to be given a job because he's got breasts, you've lost the whole reason, which is you want the best person for the job. So you're readdressing gender quotas, opening this narrative which we now have about, and I find it actually very puzzling but very worrying, is that we've gotten to a place where, I read recently they opened the first gender-neutral bathroom for kids in a school in Swords, and I was like, what? And do you know why I thought that? It was because I realized if any child that uses that bathroom is going to be bullied. That's the first thing that's going to happen. Any kid that goes into a gender-neutral bathroom, it's like, oh, he's a woman, he's a man, he's a this, and that's what they're not doing in the politically correct nonsense. And I have to say, I said this to you before, and I feel it very strongly. We have basically a bunch of angry old feminists who see men as the devil, who see men as evil and wrong, who see men as rapists and child abusers, and they are trying to put forth the narrative that men are too manly. They need to be more like women. God forbid that ever happens, because you lose all the subtleties in both when you start trying to become one. And what you have is this narrative being said, no, it's wrong to go against progression of any sort. I don't believe it is. If you ask me, would Ireland ever vote for a gay black Taoiseach? I would have said, I don't think they would for a long time. I think that would have had to be one of those games of musical chairs where somebody's moved in and then they're there and they're suddenly, okay, well, we have to deal with it. But I think that we are very advanced in many ways, but I think you can go so far before you start to make people feel like they've lost the narrative and that they're being forced to accept things which they're not comfortable with. And why that would be a problem is beyond me. I see a man in a dress, and as a man, as an Irish man, I'm slightly uncomfortable with that. Now, I understand that people have different lives, they have different leanings, but if I have to explain to my kid why that man's wearing a dress, that for me is too much too soon as an adult. I would rather that child wait to an age where it could start to make those inquiries and make some sense for himself. But if I'm forced to explain Why this whole new world of everybody's equal, and regardless of what your proclivity is, regardless of who you are and what you do, it has to be acceptable, because if it's not acceptable, they're discriminating against you. And it isn't that a lot of times. I think people genuinely are confused. And I've never understood this whole issue around sexuality, whereas you have gay men who are very effeminate and gay women who are very masculine. And I used to think that was quite strange, because the women seem to want to be more like the men, and the men seem to be behaving more like the women. But the more I looked into it, I realized that we are all chromosomes. And in some people, those chromosomes are 100% male, heterosexual, that's it. Somebody else, female, heterosexual. But there are people in the middle. And those people in the middle, for me, would have a lot of confusion, because they're not 100% sure of one thing or the other. But then you see them and you realize, so a masculine lesbian is like a feminine gay man. Their chromosomes are what they are. They cannot be who they are. But once it comes down to that, you start realizing, so it's not so much a choice. Sometimes it's just the way you're genetically made. That said, society is still predominantly a heterosexual society.
We're having to acquiesce. We're having to come down
Yes.
to minority numbers. Rather than facilitate,
Yes.
it's highlighting them, bringing them out more to the open, that they don't necessarily want to be exposed. Just want to be treated as everybody else and just crack on with it.
But the numbers are the giveaway, because how many people, if you look at Ireland as a heterosexual country, if you took the gay people, small fraction. You took the lesbians, small fraction. But yet the narrative is, no, this is a big thing. These people are deserving of the same rights. All Irish people are deserving of rights. They all deserve to be respected. But if you start to go the way we've gone, the way they've gone in America, where I call myself a teapot and you have to call myself Mr. Teapot every time you see me, we're running into an area which is impossible to police and it's impossible to make sense of. And that's what's starting to happen now. And there are kids who are just confused. They're just a bit unsure, but they know that there's a certain amount of attention. There's a certain amount of care and consideration they will get if they're not the same as everybody else.
It's very hard for young, impressionable minds to comprehend what's going on in an adult world. I'll draw your attention to a recent experience of another friend of mine, and basically his stepdaughter or his girlfriend's daughter were bringing back pictures just as signs of affection. And there was two instances. One instance where the photograph came back and it was whatever the picture was, but in the background was a suited man, kind of orange, kind of blonde hair, and that whatever he was, and he was asked who's that? That's Trump and stuff like that. My question is, why is a 6-year-old aware of politics? Why is politics being spoken about in her classroom? To me, that child should have no understanding of any of the stuff going on in politics and stuff like that. And to me, kind of a slow form indoctrination. Well, this is. I know you get to choose your child's political affections, but you don't. At the school, it's not a place to reinforce the teacher's ideology. The teacher's there to reinforce common education. Not whatever their predominance. And the second one I might add as well of that picture was a picture of him, but he was wearing a dress. And it's kind of reinformed that, well, everybody wears a dress. That's not the normative.
No, and if I had a kid and I didn't want to be bullied, if I had a kid and I didn't want to be bullied, I'd say, look, you want to wear a dress, right? Well, there are consequences to that. Not because I'm your father and I have an opinion, but because your friends, the people you go to school with, they will use that against you. They will use that to make you less than you are, because in their mind, it doesn't add up. So we have, you mentioned Trump there in America, one of the things, President Trump, yes, exactly. Yeah, listen. He's the president. And people said to me, they'll never elect that madman.
I don't care.
He's the president. Which is why this dangerous narrative that we have now that goes on in all of the media. And here's the interesting thing is, our opinions, their opinions, make no difference whatsoever. Not one iota of difference to him being president. And yet every single day in every newspaper I pick up, it's reporter after reporter after reporter. It's on the radio. Trump's a bad man. Trump's a bad man. Donald Trump cares about his country. Is he perfect? Far from it. Is he racist? Like the most of us, probably. Point is, if he does a fraction of what he said he's going to do for America, that is as good as you're going to get as a president. Because normally all of them, they go in, they'll say what they want, and then they'll do whatever the hell they want. He is going to be held probably by his critics more so than his supporters. Well, where's the wall? It's coming. Where's your immigration plan? It's done. And what they're attacking him for is for doing what he was voted. If he didn't do what he was voted in to do, he'd be out of there. He'd be a dud. They'd never trust him again. Donald Trump will be the president for another 4 years in America, very simply because he was one of the few people who stepped forward and said, I care about my country, and here's a plan I have to try and protect it. And for me, that's why he won. People say, oh, someone said to me recently, oh, well, of course, Hillary won the popular vote. And I said, well, why isn't she president? Popular vote, but like, listen, there's a competition, somebody wins, that's it. The fact that we are obsessed, even us personally who talk about and listen to, that's distracting us from the real problem, and that's part of the plan. They've us talking about America, we're not talking about Ireland. They've us talking about Strictly Dancing with the Stars, we're not talking about Ireland. And I used to laugh at people. I watched at the last time, was Celebrity Big Brother. It's only a bit of junk. I don't have a TV, but it was a bit junk watching, but I like what people watching. But that's the plan. For one, it's Celebrity Big Brother. For other, it's American politics. But actually, all that's going on is that the real narrative, which should be talked about, and all those papers who are talking about Trump and how bad he is, they should be talking about the real bad situation we have to deal here. But they're kind of, no, we're all fine here. We're not all fine here. But the narrative we're being sold is we're all happy Europeans. We're all happy to see 75 million people come to Ireland. No, Ireland is on a path to destruction, and the very authors of that destruction are our politicians, our elected and unelected, the civil servants, who make the decision to give away all our money to countries who don't need it anymore. We need it. We live in a country where a couple of weeks ago we had a really bad cold snap. Do you know, when I think of any old person sitting somewhere thinking, will I phone Eileen in America? Oh, it's too expensive. Will I put on the other bar of the heater there? Oh, Jesus, the bill. That's immoral. That's wrong. How can we live in a country that's supposed to be a country that cares, a Christian country, and say that old people should pay for phone calls, to say that old people should think before being warm? That's got to resonate with people in Ireland. That's your grandmother. That's your grandmother's sister. Those are people who this country actually does belong to.
That was a huge debt.
Oh my God, we have, and what respect are we showing to old people in Ireland? Give us your savings and piss off to the nursing home. Really, those people are the gold threads of this country. They're the people. We're whippersnappers. We had it good. We've had a ball compared to what they went through, and they're being discarded and discounted because why? Because the people in power consider them not to be part of the new agenda, and that's what we have here. We have a new agenda being put into place here.
Let's talk about some of the consequences of what's been going on so far, where the imports of immigrants have come in and affected different areas, but not being spread proportionally in the diaspora to mix in with the present communities, but being centralised in one location. And what's coming out to the effects of that? What's the consequences of those actions so far?
You can see it. You can see it straight away. You go to, whether it's Turleston, whether it's Balbriggan, wherever it is, what you're seeing is people being dumped on what's considered to be a dying society, what's considered to be a dwindling town. People are being like, if you just look at the numbers, what you have is, and unfortunately, because we have such a say racist media here, and what I mean by that is we have such a singular media here. We see RT is full of white people, the media is full of white people, everything, and this is not a white country anymore in the sense that it was before, but to people who are coming from other countries, they feel, it's nothing to do with me. I have no interest in this country. It doesn't have an interest in me. I don't give a damn about throwing down rubbish, because who cares about me? What you'll do, and what's happened in the UK and in France, is that these people who come will create their own societies. And if the integration doesn't happen, and it really doesn't, it happens on such a small level. The only time I see it is with children in the street, because they don't know any better. Yeah, absolutely. They see kids, and there's like, that's my friend, he's Chinese, there's my friend, he's African. But we all change throughout life, and when we realize what do you bring into the party? That's the thing. I don't know if you ever were a kid and you had to go to a party and you had a nice present and you had to give it, but you didn't really want to give it, and you'd be like, yeah, I brought you something. But you learned in that moment that there was more to being an adult and more to being a person than just wanting. You had to be able to learn to give. We here in Ireland are world class at giving. We give so much, and that kindness and that generosity is the very thing that they're going to hang us with, because it's the thing that they use to silence you. It's the thing to tell you you're not Christian. because you don't want to see your country dissolving. And that's what's happening. These numbers that we talked about and these different, because people will break it down into black or Polish or Muslim, but no, that's not, no. It's numbers. Doesn't matter what color they are. Doesn't matter what. The point is numbers. And the numbers will be the deciding factor always, because right now we see a problem where other people see a solution. That's really what's going on, and we see the problem for what it is. And now, if you keep going like this, Ireland's not going to be Ireland anymore.
Maybe the Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Here's the problem: the state has the people have a reaction, and the state provides.
Their solution is more of the problem. More of the problem. In other words, and you're going to pay for it. Hey, you're going to give us the money to do this. And I would say to any Irish person watching, the next guy knocks on your door looking for a vote, you get yourself a wee list of questions, and you make sure he answers those questions one after the other. Don't allow him to bullshit you or talk nonsense. You ask him, how do you feel about open borders? How do you think that's going to affect Ireland's culture? And ask them, how would you like Ireland to be in 200 years' time? Do you want it to be this melting pot like they so-called have in the UK, or would you like it still to be Ireland? Would you like your daughter to be able to Irish dance without some fella saying, that girl's a her because she's wearing a short skirt? You're talking about people coming from other parts of the world who not just have a fear and a misunderstanding of our culture, but in many cases they oppose it. They oppose it for many reasons, and the people, I see this...
They blame it for their positions, they blame it for where they come from, and it's our fault.
And we have a terrible guilt complex.
And we have a terrible guilt complex over that. We try and facilitate it, not that we appease it, but we forgive them of the crimes, or we don't allow them time enough to integrate properly. That's amazing thing.
But here's the thing, Rowan. They don't necessarily come to integrate, because if I'm going to go across the world to another part of the world where I don't speak the language, where all my qualifications are irrelevant, where everything I've built up over my life is no longer mine, and I'm going to put myself at the mercy of a country that I have no communication skills with, that's a huge thing to do. Now, I wouldn't do that if it wasn't for a very good reason. As I said, all them black fellas not coming for a suntan to Ireland. There's a real better life to be had for people here, and we've spent our lifetime helping poor people. We're generous to a fault, and I think it is to a fault, because what's happened now is that very generosity is the very thing that's been used to beat people with and say, well, you're not a good person, you're not a good Christian, you're not being generous, and say, whoa, what happened to being Christian and generous to our own people? Because people can't say this anymore. You say what I'm saying, you're a racist. And I'd say, you can call me what you want. I believe in Ireland, I believe in the future of Ireland, and I believe sticks and stones will make no difference in the end, because that's how you shut people down. And if you care about Ireland, if you care about the future of Ireland, you have a duty for your children, for your children's children, and also for everything that you've had, for every kindness, for every consideration, for education. Somebody gave you that, and you know who gave it to you? Those old people sitting cold. Those old people who can't phone their sister in the UK because they can't afford it. And that's the question I want people to ask their politicians. Where's your moral compass? Exactly. Where is your moral compass that tells you giving people who are not Irish what the Irish should be getting in first preference? How is that okay? Where's your loyalty?
Well, I want to move on to our final subject before we kind of wrap it up as well. Yeah. South Africa. There's two things going on all across South Africa. And I've listed a couple of, there's a charity organisation I'd like you to look into, and I've linked a couple of articles in the description box, which I'd also ask you to investigate. There's two stories here. The white South African farmers that are being persecuted at the moment, and also what's going on in the mines in the Republic of Congo. The Congo mines have child labour. It's openly there to be shown, but none of our mainstream is covering this kind of information. And I want to ask Kevin, I mean, how do you see it? Have you looked into that? Have you seen the numbers? What's happening in that content?
Here's the thing about South Africa, and it's twofold really. A lot of bad things have gone on in South Africa, and a lot of bad things have been done to both sides in South Africa. In history, for a lot longer, the things have been done to black people. But to expect those people to come out and not do bad things is optimistic in the extreme. Here's what I think. I think that you're never going to get a balanced opinion of that situation. You'll get a different response from a white person than you will from a black person, but from a fair-minded person will say, that's wrong. Of course it's wrong. It's wrong that anybody should have things, their birthright taken from them, their property taken from them. But again, for me, it's always the same. How much can opinion help them? And how much can opinion help us? Because in a way, what's happening in South Africa is you know, people say that Trump is a result of 8 years of a black president. And I think they've got a point. I think they've got a point because in America, when Barack Obama got elected, the idea that all the rednecks and the whole, you know, the people who were basically, who people would call them racist, but actually would probably be people who believe more in their own culture than the next. Like the people who didn't want a black president, they didn't go away. They didn't stop talking about changing the game. They didn't stop talking about putting it right because to them, they didn't want to see a black man running the country. Now, he went in there for 8 years. He did a job. I don't think he did a great job. But what I do think is that Donald Trump became all the more likely the longer Barack Obama was there because people wanted someone to speak for them. They didn't feel like Obama was speaking for all of them. And that's one of the issues. You look at South Africa and the situation down there now, and what you have is, I'm sure, a lot of political leaders who are basically scrambling to find a narrative which explains what's happening. What's happening down there is wrong, was wrong, and for some time to be, will be wrong.
Where's all that money gone? Where's all the money gone that was, you know, being spent over the generations, and the country's still in the same sort of way? I know it's a hard time. So we are restricted for time as well.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to broach on that. I did want to ask you about Telford and what's happening in Telford, but I know that the certain interviewers have been carrying out great interviews over there. I would steer you in the direction of the Imam of Peace if you're on Twitter. I think he's a very exciting man, and there's been a couple of great interviews. You may search for them on YouTube. You may search for him as well. And I think he carries a solution for most of our problems and an understanding of why the fundamentalist kind of aspect comes out of a certain religion. He has a great understanding of the Prophet's proper son, Hussein. Look into him. That's a fantastic thing. Kevin, I'm going to wind it up now, man. Really appreciate everything you've done, and appreciate the props coming out. I have a few messages just for the 24/7 team that work with me on the online stuff there with Q, Dead Cat Bounce, and Trump Movement 2, INET Coder, Resignation and on, 412 and on, Pammy, Brainstorm, the list goes on, Chris Hunter, and all the other great patrons on the live chat feed that join into my show and also conduct great research over there in that show. I want to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of my friends over here just by label Warren G. I see that you're doing a lot of late shift, you're putting a lot of effort in there, and the new windows look fabulous. Keep it going, buddy, you're doing work really well. As for the Gran Torino, I'd like to ask you to press the subscribe button so you get the reminders when we do broadcast live or when we do download new videos to the screen. Keep saying it as well, keep thanking the patrons that have provided monies and donations to the cause, because without you, none of this happens. We do accept PayPal, Patreon, cryptocurrencies there if you're of a like mind. And with that, I'd like to say thanks very much. Plus, everybody.